My name is David. I'm 42 years old, and if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you my marriage was rock solid. I met Claire in college. She was beautiful, still is. Blonde hair, hazel eyes, and the kind of smile that made you forget what you were saying. We dated for 3 years before I proposed, and we've been married for nearly 12. We weren't perfect, no marriage is, but I always thought we were safe. We had routines, inside jokes, two dogs, and a quiet little house just outside of Miami. We took turns cooking. She always burnt the garlic bread. I always left the laundry in the washer too long. But we laughed through it. That's what I thought mattered most. But I learned something hard and ugly. Sometimes the cracks don't show until it's too late. It started with a party. A bachelorette party, to be exact. Her best friend, Lena, was getting married. Claire had been helping her plan the wedding for months, picking colors, venue shopping, all that stuff. I didn't think anything of it when she told me the girls were going out to celebrate. "It's just dinner and drinks," she said casually one night as we were folding towels. "We might end up at a club later, but nothing crazy." I smiled. "Live it up. You deserve a night out." She kissed me on the cheek, and I remember how soft her voice was when she said, "Thanks, babe." Looking back now, I wish I had held her tighter. I wish I had asked more questions. The night of the party, she spent extra time getting ready. I was on the couch watching a game, but I glanced over when she stepped out of the bedroom. She wore this black dress, not too short, but definitely not something she wore around me often. Her hair was curled, her makeup done just right. She looked breathtaking. "You look nice," I said. She laughed a little too quickly. "Too much." "No, you look amazing. Just different." She shrugged. "Lena said the club we're going to is kind of fancy. I don't want to be the frumpy one." I nodded, kissed her forehead, and just like that, she was out the door. I remember watching her walk to the Uber from our window. Something about that moment stuck with me. I couldn't explain it then. It was just a feeling, like the air shifted. I didn't hear from her much that night, which wasn't unusual. A few texts around 9 p.m. She said they were having fun, and the club was wild. Then silence until she came home around 2 a.m. I was half asleep on the couch when I heard the front door unlock. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and there she was. Same dress, heels in her hand, hair a little messy. "Hey," she whispered, trying not to wake the dogs. "Hey," I said. "Good night." She paused, then nodded. "Yeah, it was fun." She leaned down and kissed me, quick, like a habit, and walked straight into the bathroom. I watched her go. Something was off. She didn't smell like perfume and sweat and drinks like usual. She smelled like cologne, not mine. And her eyes, they didn't meet mine like they used to. But I let it go. I didn't want to be that husband. The one who questions everything. The one who makes his wife feel like she's being watched. Over the next few days, things felt normal again, on the surface at least. Claire went back to her usual self. She cooked dinner, worked from home, watched her favorite crime shows. But I saw little changes. She checked her phone more. She smiled less. And she got quiet when I asked about the party. "Anything crazy happen?" I asked one night while we were walking the dogs. "Not really," she said quickly. "Lena got wasted, obviously. There were dancers. Typical stuff." I laughed. "Male strippers." She smirked. "Yeah, just silly fun." But her eyes darted away. And that was the moment I knew something had happened. I couldn't prove it, and I didn't want to accuse her, but my gut started screaming. And I've learned, your gut's never wrong. I started paying attention more. Her phone was suddenly face down on the table. She changed her lock screen. She took longer showers. I even caught her smiling at nothing once, the kind of smile that used to be meant for me. I wish I could say I confronted her right then. I wish I was brave. But I wasn't. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just insecure, that maybe she was planning something nice for our anniversary. But deep down, I already knew. That night, I laid in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling. She was facing the other way, her breathing soft and even. I reached out to touch her back just lightly. She didn't move, but I felt this distance, not just physical. It was like she was in another world entirely, and I wasn't part of it anymore. Before we dive in, thank you so much for watching, subscribing, and supporting these stories. Your comments, shares, and messages keep this going, and they remind me I'm not alone in this. If you're new here, I share real stories. raw, emotional, and sometimes uncomfortable truths about love, betrayal, and the side of marriage nobody talks about. Today's story is one I never thought I'd tell. It's about my wife, a night out, and what really happened when she went to her best friend's bachelorette party. And trust me, it started with a laugh, but ended with something I'll never forget. And it all began with that damn party. I didn't know his name at first. All I had was a picture in my head, one I couldn't shake once I finally saw him. But let me start from the beginning. I found out about Malik the same way I found out about most things in life that break you apart, by accident. But before I get to that moment, you need to understand what really happened that night. The pieces came to me slowly, through conversations, half-truths, things I overheard, and things I later saw with my own eyes. Picture this, a Friday night in Miami. The club Lena picked was one of those upscale places with velvet ropes, flashing neon lights, and music so loud it makes your heartbeat sink to the base. A place where people go to forget who they are and become someone else for a night. Claire walked in with her friends, all dressed to kill. She told me later they had a private table near the stage, a bottle of champagne waiting on ice, and a crowd of women screaming as the dancers hit the floor. You know the type, oiled muscles, perfect smiles, the kind of guys who look like they stepped straight out of a fitness magazine. But then there was him, Malik, 25 years old, 6'2", dark skin that looked like it was carved from smooth obsidian, muscles sharp enough to cut glass, and confidence? God, he wore it like a crown. The kind of man who doesn't just walk into a room, he owns it. The second he stepped onto that stage, Claire noticed him. Hell, every woman did. But here's the part that kills me. She swears he looked straight at her first, that his eyes found hers like he'd been searching for them all night. And from that moment, it wasn't a show anymore. It was something else. I've tried to picture that moment 1,000 times. Claire's sitting there in that black dress, legs crossed, holding a glass of champagne, the lights flickering against her hair, and Malik just staring at her like no one else existed. I imagine her laughing nervously at first, maybe glancing at Lena like, oh my God, he's looking at me. But then he didn't look away, and neither did she. I've heard women talk about that feeling before, the rush of being wanted, truly wanted, in a way that's raw and undeniable. Maybe that's what Claire felt when Malik stepped down from the stage and walked toward their table, hips moving to the slow, dirty rhythm of the music. She told me later that he danced for all of them, but it was clear who his focus was on. He dropped to his knees in front of her, muscles glistening under the strobe lights, and let her touch him. Just a little. That was the rule. No real contact. But rules don't mean much when the air between two people feels like it's about to catch fire. The way she described it, and trust me, hearing her tell it was like swallowing glass. He leaned in close at one point, so close she could feel his breath against her ear when he said, "You don't seem like the type to be here, but I'm glad you are." That was the spark. That one line. That one look. And from that second on, the night wasn't just fun and games anymore. Lena and the other girls were screaming, laughing, shoving dollar bills into waistbands, taking shots like there was no tomorrow. But Claire? She was gone, mentally somewhere else, somewhere only Malik existed. And it didn't stop there. He gave her more than one dance. In fact, by the time the main show was over, he came back. Twice. No other woman got that much attention. Lena teased her about it. She thought it was hilarious. "Girl, he likes you." That's what Claire told me, Lena said. And Claire? She laughed it off like it was nothing. But inside, something was breaking loose. Something wild. Something dangerous. When the club started to thin out, Malik made his move. Smooth as silk, he slipped her a note with his number on it. Just one line written in black ink. "If you want to feel alive tonight, text me." I've held that note in my hand. I've stared at it, crumpled it, straightened it again. I wish I could burn it out of my memory, but I can't. Claire didn't text him right away. At least, that's what she swore. She told me she hesitated, that she told herself it was harmless. But temptation, it doesn't whisper. It roars. And the louder it roared, the more she wanted to silence it. The only way to do that was to give in. But that comes later. For now, all I know is this. When she came home that night and kissed me like nothing had changed, Malik's name was already burned into her mind. And in some ways, that was the moment I lost her, even if I didn't know it yet. There's a line in every marriage, one you swear you'll never cross. For some couples, that line is emotional. For others, it's physical. But for me and Claire, I always thought we were safe. I believed in us. I believed in her. That was my mistake. I learned the truth weeks later. But that night, as I slept in our bed alone, it had already happened. After the club started to clear out, Lena wanted to keep the night going. They were drunk, giggly, living in the moment. Some of the girls peeled off to go home. Others stayed for another round at the bar near the back. Claire told them she'd catch up in a minute, said she needed some air. But that wasn't the real reason she slipped away. She still had the note Malik gave her, folded in her clutch. She took it out in the bathroom and stared at it like it was burning a hole in her hand. If you want to feel alive tonight, text me. Claire wasn't reckless by nature. She wasn't the type to chase danger. But that night, she was someone else. Someone tired of routine. Tired of being the good wife. Tired of playing it safe. She told me later that it wasn't about Malik. It was about her. About how he made her feel. Seen. Wanted. Alive. So she did it. She texted him. The message was simple. Just one word. Where? He responded within seconds. Told her he was parked behind the building. Dark blue Charger. Tinted windows. She didn't ask questions. She just walked out. I've replayed that image in my head too many times. Claire stepping out into the humid Miami night, heels clicking against the pavement, heart pounding like a drum. She saw the car. The windows rolled down halfway, and he was inside, smiling like he already knew she was coming. She got in. I'll spare you the details. Not because I'm protecting her. Not anymore. But because I only know the truth in pieces, fragments she admitted through tears. Bits I learned when I finally checked her phone. But what I do know is this. She didn't just sit in that car and talk. She let him touch her. She let him kiss her. She let him undo months, years of what we'd built with one night of reckless abandon. She said it started slow, quiet, a hand on her thigh, a whisper in her ear, the way his fingers brushed her cheek. She said she tried to stop herself, but her body said yes before her mouth could say no. They didn't drive far, just a few blocks to a quiet spot, tucked between buildings where nobody would look twice. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't special, but it was real, raw, animal. That's the part that hurts the most. It wasn't love. It wasn't some tragic soul connection story. It was lust, plain and simple. She gave herself to him because she could. Because in that moment, she wanted to forget she had a husband waiting at home. She wanted to forget me. She told me later she cried afterward, that she felt disgusting, that she didn't know who she was in that moment. But she still did it, and that's what matters. The worst part? She came home to me. I remember waking up when she slipped into bed beside me. I didn't say anything, just rolled over and put my arm around her waist. She froze for half a second, then slowly relaxed into my touch. I whispered, "Did you have fun?" She said, "Yeah, it was a good night." And just like that, the lies settled between us like a heavy blanket. The next morning, she made pancakes, kissed my cheek, laughed at my dumb jokes. But something was off. Her eyes were quieter. Her smile didn't reach all the way. I didn't know what had happened yet, but deep down I could feel it. Something was broken. Something she was trying to bury beneath normalcy. I started paying attention in ways I never had before. Her phone was locked tighter than ever. She jumped when it buzzed. She stopped undressing in front of me. Sex became routine, robotic. No eye contact. No pasión. And then one afternoon, she left her phone on the couch when she went to take a shower. I didn't mean to look, but I did. And there it was. A text from a number she hadn't saved. The message said, "You tasted like trouble. Let me know when you want more." My hands went cold. My vision blurred. And that's when I knew. This wasn't in my head. This wasn't paranoia. It was real. Claire, my wife, my partner, the woman I built my life around, had given herself to another man. And not just any man. A stranger. A dancer. A 25-year-old fantasy with abs and charm and a body built for breaking vows. I sat there holding her phone like it was a weapon. And maybe it was. Because from that moment forward, nothing in my life was safe anymore. Not my trust. Not my love. Not my marriage. She let him in. and she shut me out. People think betrayal hits you all at once, like a punch in the gut, quick and brutal. But in my case, it came in slow waves. After I saw the message on Claire's phone, I didn't confront her. I wish I could say I stood tall, threw her phone across the room, demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there with my hands shaking and my heart splitting down the middle, pretending nothing had changed. Because I needed time to process. Because a part of me still hoped I was wrong. Because when you've loved someone for over a decade, it's hard to believe they'd risk it all for one night with a stranger. But the lie was too loud to ignore. I started noticing things. Small things, details that most husbands probably wouldn't catch. But now I was watching. I was listening. I was awake. Claire became distracted more often. She'd zone out mid-conversation. She was on her phone constantly, then suddenly not at all, like she was trying to look less suspicious. Her laugh didn't sound real anymore. It was hollow, like she was trying too hard. And then came the earring. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a week or two after the party. Claire was at work, and I was cleaning out the back seat of her car. One of the dogs had thrown up back there during our trip to the vet, and she kept forgetting to wipe it out. I reached under the seat, cursing softly as I stretched, when my fingers brushed against something small and cold. I pulled it out. It was an earring. A gold teardrop-shaped one with a tiny green gem in the middle. Not a cheap piece of costume jewelry, either. This was nice, elegant, but it wasn't hers. I knew Claire's jewelry. I bought most of it. Birthdays, anniversaries, even just because days when she looked tired and I wanted to see her smile. She wore silver mostly, never green, never that style. And here's what made my blood run cold. It wasn't mine, but it looked familiar. I went inside and pulled up a photo from the night of the bachelorette party. One Lena had posted on Facebook. The girls were all posing together at the club, arms around each other, holding drinks mid-laughter. Claire stood in the center, and there it was, dangling from her right ear. A perfect match. I flipped the photo to zoom in. Sure enough, only one earring. Left side. She never noticed it was missing, never mentioned it. And that's when it hit me. She lost it that night. Not at the club, not in the bathroom, but after. Somewhere private. Somewhere she wasn't supposed to be. Somewhere he had been. I held that tiny piece of gold like it was radioactive. My chest tightened. I sat on the porch for nearly an hour, just staring out at the street, watching neighbors mow their lawns, watching cars pass, wondering how many other people lived with secrets like this. That evening, I left the earring on the dresser. I didn't say a word. I just placed it right next to her perfume bottle, where she'd see it. And when she walked into the room later that night, towel around her shoulders, hair wet from shower, she froze. Her eyes locked on it. She didn't speak. She didn't even breathe for a second. Then, quietly, she reached for it, picked it up, and said, "Oh, I thought I lost this at the club." Her voice was too calm, too rehearsed. I didn't respond. I just stared at her, waiting, hoping she'd say more, hoping she'd tell the truth. She didn't. She placed it into her jewelry box and walked into the closet. That was the moment I knew she'd lied to my face. Not because she didn't love me, but because the version of herself she had to live with, the one who stepped into that car with Malik, wasn't someone she could admit to being. Not out loud, not to me, but her silence? That was a confession in itself. 2 days later, it got worse. She was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The message was from an unsaved number. Same one as before. It read, "You forgot something beautiful. I still have it. Want it back." I wanted to scream, break something, punch a wall. Instead, I took a screenshot and sent it to myself. Then I placed her phone right back where it was. When she came out of the shower, I was already pretending to sleep. That night, as she laid next to me, I kept thinking about that message, about how casual it sounded, like this wasn't new for him, like he'd done this before, like Claire was just one of many. And still, a part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe it was a one-time mistake, to believe it could still be undone. But the truth was already too loud, too heavy. The earring had fallen, and with it, the last piece of trust one had in our marriage. It was a Saturday morning, the kind that should have felt peaceful. Sunlight through the blinds, coffee brewing in the kitchen, Claire humming softly as she folded laundry. But I I was drowning in quiet rage, heartbreak, and confusion, and worst of all, shame, because I hadn't confronted her, because I still loved her, even after everything. But that day, something broke inside me, not with yelling, not with violence, just a quiet snap, like a final thread giving way after being stretched too far for too long. She was putting a load of towels in the basket when I walked in and said her name. Claire. She turned, surprised by my tone. Yeah. I looked straight into her eyes. No anger, no mask, just pain. Tell me the truth. About that night. She blinked. What night? You know which one. The party. She froze. I stepped closer. My voice low. I know you didn't come straight home. I know you were with him. I saw the message. I saw the earring. I know everything. She didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stood there with her hands still gripping the towel, like if she kept holding it, maybe she wouldn't fall apart. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. David. That was all she could say. My name. Like it hurt to let it out. Tears filled her eyes. She dropped the towel. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I already knew the answer. She was lonely. We'd been drifting. I saw the signs, but I thought love would carry us through, that our history would protect us from the worst. I was wrong. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said softly. It wasn't planned. I was drunk. I felt invisible. And when he looked at me, I held up a hand. Please don't say it was a mistake. That word doesn't make this smaller. She sat on the edge of the bed and buried her face in her hands. I've hated myself every day since. I nodded. Good. You should. Silence settled between us like smoke. Heavy. Stinging. Slow. I never planned to leave you, she whispered. I know. I still love you. I didn't answer, because I didn't know how I felt. Love doesn't just disappear overnight. You don't know someone after 12 years. You don't erase Sunday mornings with pancakes, or the way she used to dance in the kitchen when she thought I wasn't looking. You don't delete memories like files from a computer. But trust? Trust fust. Like a match in the rain. I can't do this, I finally said. Her head snapped up. Wait, David. I shook my head. You let someone into the part of you that was supposed to be mine. You didn't just cheat. You chose him. In that moment, you chose what felt good over what we had. I didn't mean to, but you did. And that was it. No screaming. No breaking plates. Just the sound of a man whose heart had cracked open, and the woman who caused it finally realizing she couldn't fix it. I packed a bag that night, took the dog, left the house we'd made into a home. The hardest part wasn't leaving. It was knowing I'd never look at her the same again, no matter how many tears, no matter how sorry she was. Because some things can be forgiven, but not forgotten. It's been almost a year since that day. We signed the divorce papers in silence. She kept the house. I moved into an apartment across town. We talk now and then, mostly about the dogs. But that's it. Sometimes I catch myself thinking about her, about what we had, about what we lost. And sometimes I still wonder how a night of fun could burn down an entire marriage. But here's what I've learned. Love doesn't always protect you. Loyalty doesn't always get rewarded. And not every smile hides peace. Some hide guilt. Some hide regret. And some, like Claire's that night, she came home from the club, hide a secret that will change your life forever. So, if you're listening to this, maybe going through something similar, just know, you're not crazy. You're not weak for staying too long. And you're not broken for walking away. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is leave the person you once thought you'd never live without. The end.